The galactic assembly hall was designed for hierarchy. Light fell brightest at the center, where the most powerful species sat, and dimmed gradually toward the outer rings. A visual reminder of influence and importance. That was why no one ever questioned why the humans occupied the back row. They were new, comparatively small in number, and quiet. They did not interrupt. They did not posture. They watched, to most of the galaxy. It felt natural that humanity sat where shadows gathered, half ignored and rarely addressed, present but never central. It was an arrangement that suited everyone, especially those who preferred not to be scrutinized. The session was already hours deep into trade corridors and border disputes. When the first alert chimed, it was subtle, easily lost beneath the layered harmonics of translation fields and ambient noise. But a few seasoned delegates stiffened instantly. The alert chimed again, sharper this time, and a ripple of irritation moved through the chamber as the galactic speaker paused mid-sentence. A holo display bloomed above the central dais, its colors shifting from ceremonial blue to a warning amber that no one had seen in generations. Data began scrolling faster than most could process, and the room's temperature dropped as environmental systems compensated for the collective stress response. At the back of the hall, the humans did not move. Not a single one reached for a console or spoke into a communicator. They simply leaned forward, attention sharpening, as if this were the moment they had been waiting for. The alert escalated to red, and the chamber's acoustic dampeners struggled to contain the rising noise. As delegates demanded explanations, the speaker raised its crest, calling for order. While aides whispered frantic updates through private channels, something was moving through deep space at impossible speed. Something massive enough to bend sensor returns, and deliberate enough to trigger every dormant safeguard. Along the outer reaches of Council territory, visual feeds snapped into focus, showing a string of red vectors converging along known hyperspace lanes. The projections labeled them clearly. Human-registered battlecruisers, hundreds of them, emerging from silent transit and accelerating hard, gas echoed across the hull. Humanity did not possess the largest navy, but what they had built was infamous for one reason: it moved when no one else could. The ships were not broadcasting intent, not requesting passage, not acknowledging hails. They were moving with purpose, and that purpose was not being shared. The galactic speaker finally turned its attention to the back rows. Human delegation. It called, voice amplified and edged with alarm. You will explain this violation immediately. For a moment, it seemed as though the humans would ignore the demand entirely. Then, slowly, the lead representative stood. He did not rush. He did not apologize. He simply activated the projection in front of him, adding new layers of data to the chaotic display already filling the chamber. The new information did not contradict what the council was seeing. It completed it. We are not violating your space, the human said calmly, his voice steady enough to cut through the noise. We are executing a containment protocol. The word containment struck the chamber like a physical force. Several species reacted instinctively, defensive membranes flaring, spines rising, neural spikes firing warning signals through shared minds. Containment was not a word used lightly. It implied prior knowledge, advanced preparation, and a threat severe enough to justify unilateral action. None of those implications sat well with a council that prided itself on consensus and control. A senior delegate demanded to know what exactly humanity believed it was containing. The human did not answer immediately. Instead, he gestured, and the projection shifted again, zooming far beyond known trade routes, beyond mapped systems, into a region officially classified as inert. There, barely visible at first, was a distortion space folding inward, time behaving erratically, background radiation screaming in patterns that made no biological sense. You approved an expansion, the human said, without understanding what it would resonate with. Murmurs turned to uneasy silence as recognition began to spread. The Karen Relay Project had been a triumph. It had also been rushed. At the back of the hall, another human stood. She had not spoken yet, but her eyes never left the projection. While the rest of the galaxy struggled to process the implications, one truth was becoming unavoidable. Humanity had not been caught off guard by this moment. They had anticipated it, prepared for it, and waited until action was the only remaining option. As alarms continued to sound and red vectors multiplied across the display, the question no one voice finally took shape in the collective mind of the council. If humans had seen this coming, how long had they been watching, and why had they chosen to remain silent until now? The chamber did not erupt into chaos immediately. That was the first sign the galaxy had underestimated humanity. Silence held, heavy and deliberate, as if the assembled species were afraid that reacting too quickly might confirm the unease spreading through their neural clusters and chemical minds. The holographic projection of the human delegation remained static at the back of the hall, their faces calm, unreadable, eyes forward but unfocused, as though the true meeting was happening somewhere else entirely. When the galactic speaker attempted to resume protocol, the words felt thin, ceremonial, and suddenly irrelevant. The threat indicators were still rising, and everyone could feel it. Whatever humanity had done, it had not been an accident. Admiral Kelthrix of the Varelian Navy broke the stillness, his chitin plates clicking as he rose. He had fought wars before humans were uplifted, crushed empires that thought themselves clever. His voice carried authority earned through extinction-level victories. "Explain," he demanded, directing the word not at the speaker but toward the humans at the back. "Your vessels are moving against Council space without authorization. Your fleets are violating 3 containment treaties. If this is posturing, it is poorly executed." The translator hesitated before rendering the final phrase, uncertain how to soften the insult. The human representative did not respond immediately, and that pause unsettled the chamber more than any shouted defiance could have. When the human finally spoke, it was not the one seated at the center of their group. It was a woman slightly behind the others, her uniform unadorned, her posture relaxed in a way no military being present could mistake for weakness. "They are not moving against you," she said evenly. "They are moving past you." The statement was delivered without emphasis, without threat, and that was precisely what made it dangerous. Several species threat receptors spiked simultaneously. Kelthrix's mandibles flared. But he did not interrupt. He had learned long ago that predators who spoke softly often did so because they were already in control. The speaker attempted to reassert order, citing council jurisdiction and the need for collective decision-making. But the human woman raised a single finger, a small gesture that somehow carried enough authority to halt the flow of centuries-old protocol. "You are asking why humans sit at the back," she continued, answering the unspoken question hanging over the chamber. "You assumed it was deference, or insecurity, or cultural habit. It is none of those things. We sit at the back because we prefer to see the whole room. We sit at the back because exits matter. And we sit at the back because when things go wrong, history shows they usually do so from the front." The chamber murmured, a low-frequency ripple of discomfort. Visual feeds from outer systems began updating more rapidly, red markers multiplying along projected hyperspace corridors. Analysts whispered that human ships were not forming attack formations. They were dispersing, fanning out with terrifying efficiency, occupying gravitational choke points that only long-term strategic simulations would identify as critical. This was not a strike. It was a lockdown. The realization spread like a contagion. Humanity was not reacting to a threat. They were preventing one that no one else had detected yet. Kelthrix leaned forward, antennae angling sharply. "Preventing what?" he asked. And for the first time in centuries, the question carried genuine uncertainty. The human woman's gaze shifted to him, and for a brief moment the mask slipped. Not fear, not arrogance, something closer to grim familiarity. An extinction cascade, she replied. One you triggered 6 cycles ago when you approved the Karen relay expansion without understanding what it would weigh. The name struck several delegates' heart. The Karen relay was a triumph of cooperative engineering, a symbol of galactic unity. No alarms had sounded when it went live. No anomalies had been reported. That humanity had objected at the time was a footnote buried under diplomatic praise and economic forecasts. You were overruled, the speaker said defensively. Your data was inconclusive. The human did not argue the point. Yes, she agreed. It was. That is why we did not stop you. We observed. We prepared. And when the deep space echoes finally resolved into something identifiable, we moved. A new projection filled the chamber, replacing the council seal with a rotating mass of distorted spacetime, its surface rippling as though something enormous pressed against it from the other side. Gasps, clicks, and silence followed. The object was not a ship. It was not a species. It was a doorway being forced open from a universe with different physical rules. The speaker's voice faltered. Why was this not shared? The answer came without hesitation. Because panic kills faster than ignorance, the human said, and because if we were wrong, the damage would have been political. If we were right, the damage would be existential. The feed showed human battle cruisers taking station around the anomaly, their hulls bristling with technology no one else possessed. Weapons tuned not to destroy but to contain. Humanity had not built the largest fleet in the galaxy. They had built the most adaptable. Every system on those ships existed for one purpose: to buy time when the universe ran out of it. As the chamber absorbed the truth, another realization settled in, heavier than the rest. Humanity had not asked for permission. They had not sought consensus. They had acted alone, quietly, decisively, trusting that when the galaxy finally noticed, it would be too late to stop them, but early enough to survive. The speaker lowered its crest, a gesture of reluctant acknowledgement. And if your containment fails, it asked. The human woman did not look away from the projection. Then we sit at the back, she said softly. So we are the last line that breaks. The distortion did not behave like a fleet, or a storm, or even a weapon. It behaved like a question space itself was struggling to answer. As the galactic assembly fixated on the projection, the anomaly expanded by a fraction of a fraction, so small that only predictive models noticed it, yet so significant that every long-range equation began to fail at once. Sensors contradicted each other. Time markers slipped. Light arrived early, then late, then not at all. Several non-human delegates recoiled instinctively. Ancient survival responses triggered by patterns their species had learned to fear, long before they learned to speak. This was not an invader in the traditional sense. This was something that did not care whether it was observed. The human representative continued, his voice unraised, but now edged with a gravity that demanded attention. You call it an anomaly because you lack a better word. We call it an attractor. It listens. That single sentence rippled through the chamber far more violently than the alarms. Listens implied awareness, or at least response. A senior technocrat from the Varel Collective demanded clarification, accusing humanity of anthropomorphizing natural phenomena. The human did not argue. He simply adjusted the projection again, overlaying historical data pulled from abandoned archives, forgotten probes, lost expeditions. The lines converged on one truth. Every civilization that had expanded to fast into high-energy transit had vanished along the same invisible gradient for the first time in centuries. The assembly confronted the possibility that extinction had a pattern dot at the back of the chamber. The humans remained composed, but their stillness was not indifference. It was restraint. Another human voice joined the first, softer, almost reflective. We lost 12 unmanned systems mapping this region. Then we lost a crude scout. Then a colony ship that was never supposed to be there. The hull went silent. Casualties carried weight in any language. But colony ships carried generations. The speaker paused, letting that sink in, then added quietly, "That is when we stopped sharing preliminary data and started preparing contingencies." The accusation erupted immediately. Secrecy, withholding intelligence, acting without council approval. Voices overlapped, translators struggled, and the speaker hammered for order. The human did not flinch. "We did not hide this to gain power," he said. "We hid it because consensus would have killed us." He let the words hang, sharp and uncomfortably plausible. "You debate until certainty. This thing grows during debate." On the projection, the distortion pulsed again. This time enough for even unaided eyes to notice. A wave of interference rippled outward, briefly knocking out several delegate consoles. Panic spiked, then was forced back under control, far from the assembly hall. Beyond the fragile geometry of the mapped galaxy, the human battlecruisers advanced. They did not fly in formation as other fleets did. They moved in layered vectors, overlapping arcs, each ship adjusting independently while remaining part of a larger pattern. To an outside observer, it would have looked chaotic. To human command systems, it was a living net. Captains spoke in clip bursts, short confirmations, no wasted language, range closing. Field stability nominal, payload green, no cheers, no speeches. This was not a war for glory. It was a task long rehearsed. On the bridge of the lead cruiser, the admiral watched the anomaly with eyes that had seen too much to be impressed by scale alone. "It's reacting," an officer reported, not aggressively, curiously. The admiral nodded once. "That's worse," she said. Humanity had learned the difference the hard way. Predators attacked. Hunters studied. What lay ahead did neither. It adapted. As the fleet drew closer, strange harmonics rippled across their sensors, probing, testing, learning the edges of human technology. Shields fluctuated, then stabilized. As countermeasures adjusted in real time, the battlecruisers did not slow back in the assembly. The first realization settled like ice in the collective consciousness. This was not a rescue fleet scrambling in panic. This was not a reaction. It was the execution of a plan written long before the council ever approved the expansion. That triggered this chain of events. A delegate whispered the question many were now thinking. If this is containment, what happens if it fails? The human turned toward the center of the hall at last, meeting the gaze of species who had once dismissed as people as impulsive, emotional, short-lived. "Then we escalate," he said. "And if escalation fails, we burn the lane and everything connected to it." Gas echoed. Burning a hyperspace lane was unthinkable. It would strand systems, collapse economies, erase centuries of infrastructure. It was an act of desperation, of sacrifice. "You would destroy your own access," the speaker said. "Your own colonies." The human nodded. "We already marked them lost when they stopped answering." Silence followed, heavy and absolute. In that silence, the galaxy began to understand something fundamental. Humans did not sit at the back because they were weak. They sat there because they watched for threats no one else noticed. And because when the moment came, they were willing to lose everything to stop something worse from taking it all. The first true reaction from the anomaly arrived without warning, without sound, without any of the signals that conventional physics associated with intent. Space ahead of the human fleet folded inward, not collapsing, not tearing, but compressing, as if an invisible hand pressed gently yet irresistibly against reality itself. Distances shortened, time skewed. A light second vanished into something smaller than an atom. On the bridge of the lead battlecruiser, every alert fired at once, then stabilized as human systems adapted in milliseconds. The fleet did not scatter. It did not retreat. It adjusted, flowing around the distortion like water finding a path through stone, each ship shifting its vector just enough to maintain the integrity of the larger pattern. Contact behavior confirmed. An officer reported, voice tight, but controlled. "It's responding to our presence." The admiral leaned forward, eyes fixed on the shifting void ahead. "Not to us," she replied, "to the network." Humanity had not come with a single weapon or a single idea. They had come as a system. Layered redundancy stacked atop generations of hard-earned paranoia. Every ship fed data into every other ship. Every sensor cross-checking against models that had been rewritten 100 times in the dark. After disasters no one else ever heard about, the anomaly probed again, sending out a ripple of distorted causality that brushed the fleet's outer edge. Shields flared briefly, then recalibrated, their glow a muted silver blue against the black. In the galactic assembly, the projection shifted abruptly, now displaying live feeds pulled directly from human command relays. This alone shattered protocol, but no one objected. Delegates leaned forward, mandibles stilled, tendrils frozen, eyes unblinking as they watched human ships do what no other fleet had ever attempted. The speaker's voice broke the silence, subdued for the first time. "You are allowing us to observe an active engagement." The human representative inclined his head slightly. "You insisted on transparency," he said. "This is what it looks like when we are honest." The anomaly surged, expanding outward in a complex pattern that defied symmetry, its edges shimmering with impossible geometries. Smaller distortions budded from its surface, each one a potential rupture, a gateway to nowhere. Alarms rippled through non-human monitoring stations as predictive models screamed collapse scenarios. Entire star systems blinked red on the display. One delegate whispered, barely audible, "It's growing." The human did not deny it. "It always does," he said. "Until it doesn't." The words carried neither hope nor fear. They were simply an observation, repeated from a long line of after-action reports humanity never wanted to write again. On the battlefield, the first human countermeasure deployed, not a weapon, but a boundary. Invisible fields laced between the battle cruisers, forming a mesh of stabilized space that resisted distortion, not by force, but by stubborn persistence. The anomaly pushed, the mesh held, energy readings spiked, then plateaued as human reactors diverted power without hesitation, without debate. Short commands snapped across the fleet. "Hold tension. Adjust phase. Do not chase the echoes." Each instruction carried the weight of lessons paid for in blood and silence. This was not improvisation. This was doctrine. The anomaly reacted again, this time more violently. One of the budding distortions collapsed inward, releasing a burst of radiation that would have shredded lesser hulls. A human cruiser on the outer ring absorbed the impact, armor buckling, shields flaring, internal systems screaming. The ship did not break formation. Damage reports flooded in. Concise and precise. Hull breach contained. Casualties minimal. Operational. The Admiral exhaled slowly. "That's its first mistake," she murmured. "It thinks hurting us changes our behavior." Humanity had learned long ago that pain was not a deterrent. It was data. Back in the assembly, outrage and awe collided. "You're sacrificing ships," one delegate accused, horror bleeding through their translator. The human representative did not look away from the feed. "We're spending them," he corrected. "There's a difference." The words landed hard. Civilizations that optimize for survival struggle to comprehend a species that optimized for outcome. The projection zoomed in on the damaged cruiser, its crew already sealing bulkheads, rerouting systems, returning to their stations without ceremony. No heroics, no panic, just motion. As the engagement stretched on, a pattern emerged, subtle at first, then undeniable each time the anomaly pushed. Humanity responded not with escalation, but with calibration. Each probe met a counter that grew more refined, more precise. The anomaly began to hesitate, its expansion slower, its ripples less confident. Sensors picked up something new, something unsettling. It's conserving energy, an analyst reported, adapting its output. The Admiral's expression hardened. "Good," she said. "That means it's learning. And if it can learn, it can be beaten." The battle cruisers tightened their net, engines humming with restrained power. as humanity leaned into the moment the galaxy had never prepared for. The moment when sitting at the back was no longer enough, and the watchers became the wall. The anomaly pulsed again, a wave of distorted light washing across the fleet like a ripple in a cosmic pond. It did not scream or strike. It tested. Every sensor on every ship recorded the subtle warping of space, the shifting of particles in ways that defied conventional physics. Smaller craft flinched, but the larger battle cruisers held steady. The human fleet moved as one organism, each captain anticipating the actions of the other, each system feeding back into a mesh of predictive algorithms that allowed response times measured in milliseconds. What the galaxy saw as hesitation, humanity recognized as precision. They were not reacting. They were guiding. In the assembly hall, tension thickened to almost unbearable density. Species whose lifespans spanned millennia exchanged nervous pulses. Through communal neural links, do they understand what they are facing? A Virelian delegate hissed. The human representative tilted his head slightly. We understand because we have studied the consequences of failure. We know what will happen if this is ignored. His voice was calm, but the chamber felt the weight behind it. Across the galaxy, civilizations had spent centuries debating, posturing, and maneuvering. Humans did not have that luxury, and they had trained for it accordingly. The lesson was simple but brutal. The moment to act comes before consensus exists. Back in the void, the anomaly began to distort more violently. It sent out unpredictable pulses, each one threatening to destabilize local spacetime. The human fleet did not retreat. Instead, a single cruiser advanced slightly, its hull bristling with containment modules and energy fields tuned to absorb anomalies, rather than deflect them. Engineers aboard monitored every fluctuation, every ripple, adapting the system in real time. Commands were given in short, clip bursts: phase lock, reinforce node 3. Do not overcompensate. No one hesitated. No one questioned. The anomaly responded with subtle distortions, testing the fleet, probing for weakness. Yet every attempt was countered with cold, unerring precision. The humans had anticipated this moment. The battle cruisers were not merely ships, they were learning platforms, contingency systems, and living fortresses. Every minor damage report fed an autonomous response protocol. Every sensor reading refined the mesh further. The anomaly's probe slowed as its influence encountered resistance. That adjusted faster than its own capacity to adapt. For the first time, something enormous, something beyond conventional comprehension, hesitated. Inside the assembly, the human representative's tone shifted slightly. You see what we have built, he said softly, not because we crave dominance, but because survival demands it. Every civilization here fears extinction, but few prepare for it. We prepare because when preparation is ignored, consequences are absolute. Eyes across the chamber widened. Entire species had assumed superiority simply because of size, longevity, or history. Humans, by contrast, had no illusions of grandeur. Their confidence did not come from power, but from understanding. Every decision, every action, every calculation was informed by observation, patience, and the willingness to endure cost. The anomaly tested again, sending out a high-energy pulse that twisted nearby space. One outer cruiser flinched, its shields flickering. The human admiral's voice was steady, precise: absorb and adapt. Every fluctuation is data. Do not overreact. Do not underreact. Systems recalibrated instantly. The pulse passed, leaving the cruiser intact. The anomaly slightly diminished. A ripple of recognition passed through the galaxy. Humanity had not merely reacted to this cosmic threat. They had outhought it. As the first shockwave subsided, the fleet consolidated. The battle cruisers repositioned into a tighter, more resilient formation, encasing the anomaly within a carefully calculated perimeter. Every motion was deliberate, every energy allocation measured. It was no longer defense. It was strategy in motion. Observers in the assembly whispered, realizing that humanity had turned a moment of vulnerability into an advantage. They had moved from the back row to the front line in the galaxy, not with arrogance or show, but with certainty that came from knowing what most civilizations refuse to admit. True power is earned through preparation and patience, and it is demonstrated when the rest of the galaxy believes it has already won. For the first time, species that had long dismissed humans as insignificant began to wonder. If they had misjudged them entirely, sitting at the back had never been a sign of weakness. It had been deliberate, an observation post, a preparation ground, a proving of patience. The anomaly pulsed again, slower now, and the human fleet responded with coordinated precision. Every strike absorbed, every distortion countered, every move deliberate. Humanity had arrived, not for conquest, not for recognition, but to demonstrate that survival, when executed with foresight and courage, could bend even the rules of the cosmos itself. The anomaly had begun to behave unpredictably. Its pulses no longer followed a discernible rhythm, yet each movement carried an almost sentient deliberation, as though it were studying the human fleet, testing its limits, mapping responses. The battle cruisers held formation, every ship a node in a massive adaptive network, shifting and flexing in real time. On the bridge of the lead cruiser, the admiral observed with measured eyes. "It's learning," she said, "not attacking, not retreating, learning." Her voice carried over the fleet's internal network, calm yet sharp. "We give it a lesson in boundaries, and it adapts. We give it time, and it hesitates. That hesitation is all we need." The anomaly pulsed again, sending a wave that distorted space and energy fields. Minor vessels at the edges detected temporary phase shifts, but none faltered. Human crews moved seamlessly, recalibrating shields, redistributing power, reinforcing nodes that were under pressure. Every command was executed without debate, without error. Node 5, the Admiral instructed, synchronize with outer perimeter. Maintain containment frequency. Do not break pattern. Engines hummed. Weapon systems remained dormant. Sensors streamed uninterrupted. Each human mind a machine, operating in perfect concert. The anomaly was massive, almost incomprehensible. Yet the humans treated it as a complex problem to be solved, not a threat to be feared. Back in the Galactic Assembly, delegates could only watch, silent and unnerved. The humans had pulled live data feeds into their presentation, showing each pulse, each subtle shift of the anomaly and the exact countermeasure taken in response. The Virelian delegate's antennae twitched in disbelief. "They are managing it," he murmured, his species equivalent of awe. The human representative nodded slightly, eyes calm. "We are managing it because we cannot ignore it. Every moment wasted debating protocols costs lives, costs colonies, costs history. That is why we sit at the back. That is why we observe. That is why we act when action is decisive, not when it is convenient." A new pulse radiated outward, stronger than before, threatening to fracture the space around the fleet. One cruiser on the perimeter took the brunt, its outer hull glowing from strain. Engineers immediately rerouted power, redistributed energy shields, and strengthened interlocking node connections. Damage reports were concise, factual, and without panic. Hull integrity holding, casualties contained, operational. The anomaly reacted again, subtly withdrawing, almost recoiling, as though it had encountered resistance it had not anticipated. Humanity did not pursue aggressively. They maintained their adaptive net, letting the anomaly test and retreat, guiding its energy without confrontation, controlling the flow without engaging in destruction. The assembly hall collectively held its breath. Species that relied on brute strength and overwhelming force could not comprehend the strategy. The humans had demonstrated something far more dangerous than raw power: the ability to impose order on chaos, to bend the unknown to measure responses, to act without emotion yet with precision. If they can do this, one elder whispered, what else have they prepared? The human representative's gaze remained on the projection. "We do not act for glory," he said. "We act for survival. That is the difference between species who perish and species who endure." Suddenly, a minor anomaly flickered near the fleet's center, a distortion that threatened to overlap containment nodes. Without hesitation, a human cruiser adjusted its trajectory, sending a pulse of stabilizing energy that snapped the distortion back into alignment. The anomaly reacted with a wave of subtle turbulence, yet the fleet remained intact. Communications were clipped and precise. "Adjust Node 9. Phase lock reinforced. Maintain perimeter. Do not break pattern." Every ship responded instantly, demonstrating not only discipline, but a shared understanding that had been honed through years of preparation, through uncounted simulations. Through loss and survival, the anomaly hesitated again. Its energy pulses slowed, subtle distortions, becoming less frequent, less aggressive. Sensors detected changes in its field coherence, almost as if it were reconsidering every move. Humanity did not celebrate. They did not relax. They maintained their perimeter, quietly observing, patiently guiding. Their victory was not in destruction. It was in control, in shaping the unpredictable without panic, and standing at the back long enough to see the entire room, long enough to act decisively when the moment demanded. The galaxy had long assumed humans acted impulsively, recklessly, or emotionally. Now every observer understood the truth. Humans acted deliberately, strategically, and without hesitation, because they had learned the cost of failing to act, and the consequence of waiting too long. As the battle cruisers held, perfectly synchronized, and the anomaly pulsed one last time with minor fluctuation before settling, an unmistakable pattern emerged. Humanity had not only contained the anomaly, they had taught it boundaries, forced it into predictability, and proven that even forces beyond comprehension could be managed with patience, coordination, and foresight. And somewhere across the galaxy, species who had once dismissed the humans as insignificant now realized that the back row had always been humanity's strongest position. From there, they had watched, learned, and acted, transforming observation into control, hesitation into mastery, fear into certainty. The anomaly's fluctuations had slowed to a rhythm that almost suggested caution, almost suggested comprehension. The human fleet maintained its perfect perimeter, every ship a precise node in a living network that flexed and adapted without hesitation. Observers across the galaxy strained to understand, to anticipate, to question. But humanity refused to explain beyond the immediate necessity of action. The anomaly pulsed again, more cautiously this time, as if aware that it was being measured, monitored, contained. Every sensor aboard the battle cruiser streamed real-time data back to Central Command, where humans processed and recalibrated instantly, merging instinct, strategy, and computation into a single seamless response. Inside the assembly, the delegates leaned forward, their disbelief palpable. "It is being contained," a representative whispered. Others nodded, yet fear and awe tangled in their voices. The human representative, standing quietly at the back, allowed the projection to speak for him. Data overlays showed energy, flows, node integrity, subtle shifts in the anomaly's geometry, all countered before they could ripple out of control. Humanity did not fight with weapons in the traditional sense. They fought with knowledge, timing, coordination, and restraint. They had anticipated not just the anomaly, but its reaction to every conceivable countermeasure. That level of preparation was unprecedented and terrifying to behold. The anomaly's energy rippled outward again, probing the fleet's perimeter. Outer cruisers flared shields and recalibrated power grids in milliseconds, their energy fields bending without collapsing. On board, human crews executed commands with precision, no hesitation, no panic. Phase lock confirmed, node alignment nominal, containment stable. Each report was concise, factual, a testament to training and preparation. The anomaly recoiled slightly, A subtle pullback as if acknowledging a force it could not easily manipulate. The humans did not celebrate. They did not speak unnecessarily. Their calm was absolute, almost unnerving to any observer who expected reaction, emotion, or uncertainty. A sudden burst of light from the anomaly illuminated the human fleet in stark relief. Shadows stretched along the hulls, across the control bridges, highlighting the disciplined symmetry of motion and technology. Observers could see the fleet as one organism, each cruiser responding to every stimulus, every ripple, every wave. It's reacting to pattern, not to threat, an analyst murmured. The admiral nodded. Correct. Threat is arbitrary. Pattern is predictable, and predictability is what allows control. Humanity had transformed a chaotic, incomprehensible force into something manageable, something that could be studied, contained, and ultimately neutralized without catastrophic engagement. Back in the assembly, tension erupted in murmurs and whispers. Councils long used to assuming superiority were forced to reconsider. The humans had moved from passive observers at the back row to active arbiters of galactic stability. No speeches, no demands, no arrogance, only the cold, unyielding execution of strategy. The human representative's voice cut through, calm, deliberate, and absolute. We do not act for glory, for conquest, or for recognition. We act because failing to act costs everything. Observation is preparation, action is certainty. And in the absence of certainty, patience is the only weapon worth wielding. The anomaly pulsed again, slower this time, its energy ripples brushing the fleet with gentle force. Humans adjusted nodes, reinforced containment meshes, and held their formation. The larger pattern became evident. The anomaly was learning to respect constraints, understanding the limits imposed not by physical power but by deliberate action. A junior officer whispered to her captain, "It's hesitating." The admiral's lips curved slightly. "Good. Hesitation is compliance without destruction. That is how you win without firing a single shot." As hours passed, the anomalies energy softened, fluctuations becoming less aggressive, more calculated. The human fleet maintained vigilance, every ship synchronized, every sensor aligned. They had not needed to destroy it, to fire upon it, to force it into submission. They had acted with precision, patience, and foresight, and the anomaly had yielded, in small but undeniable ways, to human strategy. Observers could not help but notice the irony. The species everyone assumed to be impulsive, reckless, and emotional had just demonstrated the most controlled, calculated, and disciplined force the galaxy had ever witnessed. By the time the anomaly stabilized completely, the galaxy understood something fundamental. Humans did not sit at the back because they were weak. They sat there because they watched. They learned. They prepared. And when the moment demanded, they acted with certainty that no other species could match. The back row was not a position of inferiority. It was a vantage point, a position of patience, a place from which humanity could observe the chaos of the galaxy, calculate, and impose order without hesitation. For the first time, species across the assembly realized that underestimation had been their greatest mistake. The human fleet adjusted its formation one final time, holding steady, sensors monitoring, engines humming softly. The anomaly remained contained, held in place not by firepower, but by strategy, coordination, and foresight. Across the galaxy, whispers of awe began to circulate. "They sit at the back." One delegate murmured, "But they see everything, and they act when it counts." Humanity had revealed itself fully, not through destruction, but through deliberate, confident control. And for the first time, the galaxy realized that to underestimate humans was to misunderstand the very nature of their power. The anomaly had ceased its erratic pulses, yet its presence dominated every sensor and every mind that monitored it. The human fleet did not relax, did not celebrate, did not even acknowledge triumph. Every ship remained in perfect formation, engines humming a low, disciplined rhythm. energy fields aligned in a web that extended across the void. The galaxy watched, and for the first time, understood that humans did not need spectacle to command attention. Their power was in patience, precision, and the absolute mastery of circumstance. The anomaly shifted slightly, probing again, and the human response was immediate, exact, and unflinching. Reinforce containment perimeter. Phase arrays nominal. Adjust sensor harmonics for subtle distortion. The Admiral ordered, her voice steady, calm, and unstoppable. The fleet responded as a single entity, every command executed without hesitation. The sheer coordination of human engineering and instinct creating a wall of stability against the incomprehensible forces before them died in the galactic assembly. Murmurs turned to awe, and awe to disbelief. Species long convinced of their supremacy realized that they had misjudged humans completely. Sitting at the back had always been humanity's advantage. They observed when others acted, learned when others debated, and struck only when preparation was absolute. The human representative addressed the hall, his voice calm yet resonant. We sit at the back because we see what others miss. We act only when every possible outcome is known and every risk accounted for. Our hesitation is deliberate, our patience is deliberate, and when we move, it is with certainty. The words landed like steel, heavy with implication, echoing in minds long accustomed to judging humans as impulsive or emotional. The anomaly, sensing the unbroken mesh of human control, pulsed again smaller, more tentative. Sensors aboard the battlecruisers reported minimal fluctuation. One officer remarked quietly, "It's hesitating." The Admiral's eyes narrowed, a hint of satisfaction in her expression. "Good. Hesitation is recognition of boundaries. That is the only victory worth claiming here." The human fleet advanced slightly, not aggressively, not recklessly, but strategically, nudging the anomaly toward a stable containment pattern. Guiding its behavior was subtle influence rather than direct confrontation. Each movement, each adjustment, was measured, deliberate, and perfectly executed. Back in the assembly, delegates leaned forward, struggling to comprehend. "They are controlling it without attacking it," a Varelian murmured. "That is impossible." The human representative inclined his head slightly. "Nothing is impossible when preparation and observation define action," he said. "Strength is not measured by destruction. It is measured by control, by foresight, by knowing when to act and when to wait. We do not sit at the back because we're weak. We sit there because we see everything, and we act with certainty when it matters." The chamber fell silent. No species had ever spoken so openly about restraint as a weapon, about patience as power, and about observation as dominance. Humanity's lesson was clear. Those who wait at the back are often the ones who hold the universe in their hands. On board the fleet, the anomaly pulsed one final time, radiating subtle distortions that brushed the human perimeter, testing the mesh once more. Outer nodes flared shields, adjusted harmonic frequencies, and absorbed the disturbance seamlessly. Data streamed to Central Command, recalibrating the fleet in real time. Damage was negligible. No crew panicked. Every report was concise, factual, precise. All systems nominal, perimeter stable, containment maintained. The anomaly shifted, withdrew slightly, and the fleet adjusted to maintain alignment. What had begun as a chaotic, unpredictable force was now a controlled entity, responding to human direction without violence, constrained by strategy and foresight. Rather than destruction, the human admiral allowed herself a single breath, barely perceptible. "It's learning," she said quietly, "not to attack, not to flee, but to respect the boundaries we've set." The fleet held position, a silent demonstration of control, patience, and discipline. Across the galaxy, observers realized that the humans had turned vulnerability into power, unpredictability into opportunity, and hesitation into mastery. Sitting at the back had never been a weakness. It had been a vantage point, a strategic position from which humans observed, calculated, and acted when the moment demanded absolute precision. The anomaly, colossal and incomprehensible, had met its match not in firepower, but in strategy, coordination, and the unparalleled patience of humanity. Hours passed. The anomaly stabilized further, settling into a pattern fully constrained by the human fleet. No further destructive pulses emerged. The fleet did not advance or retreat. It held the line, a living testament to the fact that power could be demonstrated without aggression, that control could be exercised without violence, and that patience and foresight were among the deadliest weapons in existence. Delegates in the assembly shifted uncomfortably, realizing that humans had revealed something every species had assumed incorrectly. The back row was never about fear. It was about watching, learning, preparing, and acting with precision when the consequences were greatest. Humanity had just rewritten what it meant to be formidable. The anomaly had finally settled, its once chaotic pulses now reduced to gentle, predictable undulations, constrained entirely by the human fleet. Every ship remained in perfect formation, engines humming softly, shields glowing in quiet synchronicity. The humans had not fired a single weapon, had not struck, had not sought to destroy. Yet their dominance was undeniable. Observers across the galaxy, watching live projections, could not conceal their awe. The fleet had transformed what others would have called an unpredictable threat into something manageable, predictable, even cooperative. Sitting at the back had allowed them to study, to adapt, to prepare. Waiting had become power, patience had become control, and observation had become supremacy. In the galactic assembly, the human representative addressed the chamber, voice calm but resonant. You see now why we sit at the back. Not because we lack courage or strength, but because we understand the cost of misjudgment. To watch is to learn, to wait is to survive, to act with certainty is to define outcomes. Every species here feared the unknown. We do not. We study it. We understand it. And when the moment demands, we act decisively, without hesitation, without waste, without chaos. His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Delegates from every corner of the galaxy began to murmur in realization, acknowledging that they had underestimated the humans at their own peril. The anomaly pulsed one last time, a soft ripple across the void, testing the fleet with minimal influence. Human engineers and operators responded instantaneously, recalibrating shields, reinforcing nodes, and subtly guiding the distortion into a stable pattern. The battle cruisers did not move aggressively. They did not need to. Their mere presence, their perfect coordination, and their absolute mastery over contingency forced the anomaly into compliance. It was not dominance through violence. It was dominance through understanding, through preparation, through the quiet, relentless imposition of order on chaos. Across the galaxy, whispers became statements. Species that had once dismissed humans as impulsive, reckless, or insignificant now recognized a truth they could not ignore. Humans did not rush into battle. Humans did not seek glory. Humans acted with knowledge, with patience, and with foresight that turned every perceived weakness into an advantage. Observation was their weapon, calculation was their shield, and action, when it came, was absolute. Sitting at the back had always been deliberate, a position from which humanity could turn the tide of events without ceremony, without fanfare, without the need to prove itself through destruction. The fleet slowly adjusted formation, engines pulsing in subtle rhythm, energy meshes realigned, containment fields stabilized. Human captains exchanged minimal communication, concise and precise, node stability confirmed, anomaly response within parameters, fleet integrity maintained. There was no celebration, no applause, only the quiet, disciplined hum of machines, and the unwavering focus of a species that had earned its mastery through observation and preparation. The anomaly, now fully constrained, pulsed quietly as if acknowledging its limits. Humanity had not sought to crush it, yet it could not escape their influence. The assembly remained silent, stunned into reflection. The human representative continued, voice steady. We sit at the back to see clearly, to prepare fully, to act decisively. What looks like delay is strategy. What looks like hesitation is mastery. And what looks like restraint is power beyond comprehension. This is why humans endure. This is why humans thrive. This is why, when the galaxy finally looks to the back row, it will find not weakness, but the fulcrum of fate itself. The delegates absorbed the weight of his words, a realization dawning across civilizations long accustomed to underestimating humanity. On board the fleet, the anomaly remained contained, stable, and studied. Humanity had proven the impossible, that a species could exert control over forces that defied comprehension, that it could master chaos not through aggression, but through understanding, that it could impose order without a single shot fired. The battle cruisers maintained their positions, engines humming, sensors watching, minds calculating, disciplined and calm. Sitting at the back had been their strength all along. Observation had become mastery, patience had become dominance, restraint had become victory. And in that quiet dominance, the galaxy understood for the first time what it truly meant to be human, not violent, not reckless, not impulsive, but deliberate, strategic, patient, and unyielding in the pursuit of certainty and survival. The back row was not a place of inferiority. It was a vantage point of insight, a seat of preparation, and the foundation of a power that the galaxy had only just begun to comprehend. Humans had waited, watched, adapted, and acted with precision. They had demonstrated that true strength is measured not in the force one wields, but in the wisdom to know when and how to wield it. The anomaly now pulsed in quiet compliance. The human fleet held formation, and the galaxy stood in awe. Observation had become control. Hesitation had become victory. Sitting at the back had never been weakness. It had always been humanity's greatest strength. And for the first time, the galaxy realized the full measure of human power, patience, and strategic brilliance.